Good afternoon. So today I just want to take you through a few logistics of how we're going to facilitate, as soon as I get organized here, there we go. Um, just a few logistics to keep you all informed. This cafe really started with a conversation about a shoebox lunch. And out of that conversation, almost 18 months ago, just talking about celebrating Juneteenth and having the shoebox lunch like many of my ancestors did way back when, we arrive here at America's table celebrating with all of you. Please don't be dismayed by the number of people in this room. There are almost 300 of us watching and listening at our service centers and in the community. This will be broadcast on our YouTube channel, and we want you guys to know that all of your contributions really do matter. Just to get the ball rolling, welcome to the ELC. It's more than lunch. This month, our theme is reimagining Thanksgiving. This gathering is intended to bring our community together to share our memories, traditions, pain, sorrow, joy, and triumph. As we break bread together as co-workers, partners, and advocates, we will learn more about our similarities than we will about our differences. Our strength lies in the diversity, and our experiences lay the foundation for our future generations. We want you to check in on Facebook, Twitter, let everyone know what we're doing here. Just checking in, just clicking that check-in box will post to your friends and family that you are here at the ELC participating in this event. Today we have guest storytellers, individuals who've taken their time to come join us today to share their experiences, and I'd like to take the time to introduce them now. Starting with Roxy Aju J. I hope I said that right, Roxy. Did I get it? Azwa? Hey. Azwa Hey. Perfect. Roxy is the Public Allies Miami manager. She works at Catalyst Miami, one of our great partners. She supervises a core group of public allies who are out in the community, two of which we are employing here at the Coalition. She's a freelance photographer. She focuses her efforts on social change, both in the community, with individuals, and especially with our youth. And in her free time, she enjoys photography. Please welcome Roxy Aju J. Roxy, I'm going to go ahead and do all the introductions, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'm glad you're so eager to start. Our next storyteller really needs no introduction. She's Nanette Bartels, our very own. Nanette has over 40 years of early childhood experience, both serving as an inclusion specialist, working with our nation's youth. She hails from Connecticut, where she spent quite a bit of time doing training and technical assistance prior to moving here in Miami, and has continued that work supporting our Let's Move campaign. Without further ado, Nanette Bartels. Evelio mentioned Gemalette Diaz, Territory Manager for Kaplan Early Learning. I got to spend quite a bit of time with Gemalette recently and learned that we're neighbors. Gemalette is responsible for sponsoring this lunch along with her company, Kaplan Early Learning. But more importantly, Gemalette really has a heart for this work. She's a previous child care director for multiple sites across the state of Florida. Right now, her territory includes both Miami-Dade, Broward County, Martin County, Monroe, Okeechobee, Palm Beach, St. Lucie. To say the least, she's very busy, but she made the time to be here today, and for that, we're grateful. Gemalette works for Kaplan Early Learning, once again, who provided this beautiful lunch, but more importantly, as my neighbor in Pembroke Pines, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come and for sharing your story with us. It's not often that we can get our vendors, we have so many great vendors, but when we have vendors that really invest in the Coalition, we have to take the time to say thank you. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Carolyn Nelson Godert is joining us here today. Carolyn is the president and CEO of Nth Degree Works, LLC. As an educator and social justice advocate, Carolyn has worked in many arenas, starting as a candy striper at Hialeah Hospital. She got her feet wet in working with the community, and most importantly, working for our youth. What I thought was most interesting is Carolyn serving as the Miami-Dade County Council Parent Teacher Association leader. She sits now in the executive chair. She's worked with the Children's Trust, with Catalyst Miami as their former Vice President of Community Leadership, which is where I've come to know her, worked with the Urban League. But I think I would speak for Carolyn that her most proud moment is serving as the mother of her son, Dr. Nicholas Nelson Goddard. Please welcome Ms. Carolyn Nelson Goddard. So we will begin this journey today and follow through all these stories, choosing randomly from a cup after our guest speakers have spoken. Many of our ELC staff have shared their memories, and we want to give them the opportunity to share those memories with you. I know I personally have received quite a few emails, requests for recipes, and I want to be able to make sure that all of you get the opportunity to read and listen to some of the stories that our coworkers have shared, and hope that you will join us. If you haven't already signed up to share your story, please do so. This is an open mic. We are just off the heels of Veterans Day, where we celebrate the land of the free because of the brave. I invite you to share your experiences at America's table, but remember, it's not America's altar. Thank you again, everyone, for coming to share this bountiful lunch. We hope that you enjoy this and will join us again in January when we resume to share more recipes, and perhaps maybe a healthy, since January typically is when we think about that. But your memories are valuable. Welcome to America's Table. In all things, give thanks. We'll start with Roxy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story. I would like to start with a quote that I find is right on with the topic of today, and it's from my mentor in life, President Dr. Daisaku Ikeda. And he says, "None of us can exist in isolation. Our lives and existence are supported by others in seen and unseen ways, be it by parents, mentors, or society at large. To be aware of these connections, to feel appreciation for them, and to strive to give something back to society in a spirit of gratitude is the proper way for human beings to live." I packed a suitcase and told my sister and grandmother I was only going for 6 months. "It'll go fast," I said. "I'm going to study English, I'm going to support my mom who had moved here to Miami a year before, learn a new skill, make new friends." I remember clearly the look at Mama's eyes. Somehow she knew it was going to be longer. And actually, she wished that, because she knew I was going to have a better future, the one that I wasn't going to have back in Venezuela. Mama, as I call my grandmother, raised and took care of me while my mom worked hard to build her business. She was my rock when I had issues in school, when I got sick, when I was confused, and she always knew how to spoil me, like cooking sweet plantains and arepas to fill my stomach and my heart with joy. I owe a deep debt of gratitude to my grandmother. It was late 2002 when I came to the United States. I was 21 years old. During this time, I was introduced to the Sokaga International, a community-based organization that promotes peace, culture, and education centered on the respect for the dignity of each human life. I can say that here is where I started building my extended family, a diverse group of individuals that taught me about community, about friendship, and about food. And here's also where my leadership journey began. Since my first year here, Thanksgiving became an amazing opportunity to share with new friends and learn about the different cultures, because most of us were immigrants, different foods, and our common humanity. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I had issues with my visa and fell out of status. I had to make a decision to either go back to Venezuela or stay undocumented, which is what I did. For the next 4 to 5 years, I pressed on, working different gigs, helping my mom's company, learning English, and practice a humanistic philosophy that gave me the strength and courage to continue moving forward despite the obstacles. To hard work and efforts and the support of many, many people that every day I'm thankful for, I was able to get my visa, to go to college to pursue my education, my passion for photography, and I have visited my family a couple of times. 3 years ago, I had the amazing opportunity to join Catalyst Miami. And although it was a stretch for me because it didn't have anything to do with art or photography, I learned how to engage students in learning about the education system, social change, youth leadership, youth voice. I also began getting involved in initiatives at organizations that taught me about advocacy, civic engagement, community building, and social justice. And I have to say that Miss Carolyn Nelson Goddard was a big mentor, in this process of learning. I'm fascinated, by the cultures, the values, the diversity of this country. I felt like all the experiences that I've had have built me to really fulfill a mission here, and I'm proud to do so. Last year, my grandma was diagnosed with cancer. I called her and I promised her that she was going to recover and that we were gonna spend holidays together. She arrived 2 weeks ago, healthy and happy, and we will be spending our first Thanksgiving together next week. We will also be spending our, holidays, Christmas together, which are the first one in 14 years. I am truly grateful by all the opportunities I have, and my vow is to continue making efforts to treasure each individual wherever I go so I can create change. Thank you.
Thank you all for that. If we could just hold the applause until the end of we'll say all of our shared stories, we'll save a little bit on time. So I'd like to now open the mic for Nanette Bartels.
Good afternoon, everybody. When Pam asked me to think about speaking about my family's Thanksgiving, I thought, oh my Lord, how am I ever going to describe what happens with us? But basically, Thanksgiving for us has always been a yearly transition between alternating celebrating with my extended family of origin and with my in-laws. So it's 1 year on, 1 year off, back and forth. My family of in-laws are actually direct descendants of the very famous lovers of the Mayflower, Priscilla Mullins and John Alden. My daughter is their direct descendant. And as such, her genetic heritage gives her the right and the privilege of celebrating Thanksgiving at Plymouth Plantation, which I always thought would be so cool. Just let me be your plus one. The historian in me would love to experience that. Although when I think about it realistically, I know that I would end up struggling with the historical amnesia that has come about in this nation, the rewriting of the relationship between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag Native Americans who lived on that land. But during the on years when we were celebrating with my in-laws, Thanksgiving was typically a small gathering, and my mother-in-law and her sister presided over the preparations. And we would arrive along with my husband's brother's family, and altogether we totaled 8 people. Everyone was always on their best behavior. There was one ritual that we always celebrate, and that is before eating, we would go around the table and everyone would share what we feel most thankful for this year. And I think that that ritual really was very precious to all of us. It deepened our insight into the lives of each other, because while this family was not a very religious one, this ritual allowed us to see a little deeper into each other's lives. These are people who typically keep much of their inner life inside. They don't talk about feelings a lot. And I guess I could sum it up by saying Puritan still and always. Now, on the opposite years, the alternating years when we celebrate with my family of origin, we number 30 or more folks. My husband always referred to us as the tribe. I have cousins who fly down to Florida from New York City, upstate New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. And our celebrations are always loud, and groups of us talking, having conversations, melding one group with another, everybody just being joyful that we're together again. And we all have our roles, well honed over the years. My cousin Geraldine is always responsible for the turkeys, and she makes the green bean casserole, while my cousin Barbara is in charge of the sweet potatoes and a Waldorf salad. Cousin Kevin presides over the cocktails. My job has always been to make dozens and dozens of stuffed mushrooms. And before I became a vegetarian, I always made the gravy from the pan drippings. Because before I started doing that, they just used jars of commercial gravy. So they're back to that now that I don't do meat. And being me, I always bring a surprise recipe. This year, it's going to be roasted Brussels sprouts with wild mushrooms. I've never been one for the same old, same old. But what I can say about celebrating with this side of my family is that there's never been too much serious contemplation over the deep meaning behind Thanksgiving. It's really all about family. And for us, that's enough.
Now. We'll have Jemilette Diaz, followed by Carolyn Goddard.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So the first thing that I like about Thanksgiving is just the words. So it's a compound word, right? We're in early education. Thanks, because thanks is just such a powerful word to me. And I make sure that I use it on a daily basis. If you get an email from me, I always end it with thank you. Because in some way, you are helping me or I am helping you. And I think it's very important. It's such a small word, but it goes such a long way. In a field that we can't give much to our staff, but we can certainly make them feel appreciated by simply just saying thanks or thank you. And giving, because that's one of my passions. I love to give, whether it's a shoulder to lean on, an ear to listen, food for you guys to enjoy. Whatever the case may be, I like to be there and help. You know, I'm that type of person that will, if there's food left over, I will find the first homeless person that I can to make sure that he or she gets that meal. And so that's the first thing I like about Thanksgiving. And like many things in my life, Thanksgiving has evolved throughout the years. I was born in Puerto Rico, and there it was celebrated very much the same way as it is here. But we also like to put our little culture twist, as I like to call it. So yes, we would have turkey, but we would also have our pernil, and we would have our arroz con gandules and our pasteles, and we could not have a gathering without having music and without dancing. So I think that's the little difference about how we celebrated in Puerto Rico. I moved to Florida when I was 10 years old and found myself with just our own little immediate family because we left all of our family behind. But we still ate pernil and turkey. We still had music playing, and we still danced. And we gave thanks, which was really the most important thing for that day. Um, as an adult, once again, my Thanksgiving evolved because I was then married and I had my son, and I was brought into a different culture. So the Peruvian culture. So we brought our families together. We were just way too many people to sit around a table. But we would gather and we would say a prayer. And we would also share, like Nanette said, what we were thankful for. And that was a time that, we laughed at some because the children would also share. So they say the darnest things, right? And, uh, and some of us cried as we were sharing what we were thankful for because not all the times are happy times. But through it all, we were still together. We enjoyed and we still listened to music, danced, and enjoyed and gave thanks. So 10 years ago, my Thanksgiving once again changed. And that's because as I was crazy busy, trying to get the house ready and the food ready and everything that goes along with it, I received a call that my father passed away the day before Thanksgiving. So you go from all of a sudden getting ready to celebrate to trying to make funeral arrangements. It was unexpected, but at the same time, that same day, I welcomed a new baby nephew. So I still had to find my way to be thankful for what the new life that we had been given into our family. It was a tough time. It really shocked my world, rocked it, shocked it, did everything to it, and it changed me. It changed my outlook in life. I was a district manager for like 12 preschools, so I had a very busy, stressful job. I traveled a lot, and after that, I quickly left my job because in an instant, you realize what's really valuable in life and what you should be thankful for. And I didn't want to be that crazy mom trying to run to my son's baseball game, um, just getting off a flight, from Fort Lauderdale International Airport. I wanted to be there. I wanted to live in the present, and I wanted to make every day count. And so that's what I've been doing every day since then. So next week's an important week because it marks the 10th year that my father passed away, but he's still there with us. And even though that year we didn't dance much, we didn't eat much, but we still had some music um, in honor of him because he was the one that would always make the big pernil and he wouldn't want it any other way. Um, we were blessed that we were able to, we hadn't celebrated holidays in 10 years with my family in Puerto Rico. So we didn't know that my dad had a life insurance, right? So I get this money, and I was the one in charge because even though I'm the youngest one in my family, I'm the boss. so I talked to my family, and I said, you know what? I think that we could do many things, but money comes and goes. I think that we should bring our family from Puerto Rico and celebrate with them because that's what my father would want. And we did. We brought 21 people. We paid for it all. And we were able to give them that opportunity the following year, so 2007. And some of my nieces and nephews had never even flown on a plane before. We take for granted that I have an annual pass for my son and I to go to Orlando and to go to Disney. So 2007 became a new tradition. And so all I have to say to you guys, my wish for you this year, this Thanksgiving is eat that apple pie or that pumpkin pie. Don't count the calories. Dance, sing, enjoy every moment. Kiss your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Make memories and take lots and lots of pictures.
Good afternoon. You ate and you're sleepy. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. So, I'm going to start with a little comedy. Who here has seen the Austin Powers movie and the guy with the mole? Moly, moly, moly. So, what are you all thinking? Band aid, band aid, band aid, right? All right. So, I'll tell you the story behind the band aid. I'll tell you the story behind the band aid. and include a public service announcement with it. So you mentioned Disney. My family and I love Disney. We've gone to Disney since I was very little. And my husband and I started going there in 1982 when we left the Philippines. We were both Air Force on our way to an assignment in Germany. So we're back at Disney this weekend because it's the Wine and Food Festival and we're having a ball. And if you know anything about me, you know that I drink a lot of water, normally with a chunk of ginger sitting in it. But this weekend was a little different, so I was very busy. Went to Indian River to visit a county council PTA, drove up to Disney to spend the last few days at the Wine and Food Festival, and I didn't drink the amount of water that I normally drink. And my body told me that. Standing in line to see the Frozen ride, my husband turned around and I was face down on the concrete. Literally face down on the concrete. Dehydrated. Drink water. That's my PSA for today. Drink water. Listen to your body and practice self-care. It's very, very important. Or you will find yourself standing in front of an audience full of people and the 300 people that are watching and listening that we were told about with a big Band-Aid on your forehead. So don't do that. So if you've had an opportunity to read through the booklet that's provided with all of our stories in it, you notice that our story doesn't talk about it. It mentions a little bit about what I do. But very quickly about my favorite food. So I grew up in Oaktown with use the mic so everybody hears. So I grew up in Overtown, as you will see in my story, and it was a very trying time towards the end. 95 came through, I-95 came through, but prior to that, I had the most wonderful childhood you can imagine. But if you listen to stories about Overtown, that's not what you hear. You hear that the black community was pushed there by the railroad. We were segregated by circumstance and intent, and that everyone there was just in dire circumstances. That was not the case. Uh, Happy childhood, constantly reading in the library that is still there, which I've gone back to read to children. Um, Concerts in the park. There was a summer series of concerts in the park that was directly across the street from my house. So I had an opportunity. Okay. All right. So I had an opportunity every summer during that concert series to, of course, go get your bath. Then you can go out on the porch and listen to the concerts. So there were always things to do in Overtown, always wonderful neighbors, always people contributing to both your development and your joy. And those were my formative years. And those were the times that I am thankful for. So when it comes to Thanksgiving and thinking about the things that we think about that bring us joy, that bring us sadness, um, I also think about the end of my time in Overtown with that pile of rocks still there, with my family down the street, with Miss Emma next door still baking me cookies in those old pickle jars that she collected so she could bake us cookies. But I think most importantly about the fact that just before we were to move and leave Overtown, we lost my mother. So I'm thankful for that time Overtown because it gave me years and years with Ruth. And people loved Ruth just as much or probably more than I did because when you start to get to those tween years, you start to get a little flaky and you don't appreciate your parents as much. But I was very, very lucky that my mom and my dad made sure that I knew, not just during Thanksgiving, but every day, to look around, see the people, see the community, see everything around you, and be thankful. So I invite you, not just next week, not just when someone does something for you, but every day, take the time to be thankful for everything. Happy Thanksgiving.
So we've got a cup full of stories, and in the interest of time, I'm going to announce two so that the next person can be ready. So we'll start with Evelio Torres, followed by Nichelle.
So you're in luck because mine is going to be very quick, and I think you already heard most of it. So, when I first started writing the story, I have, we all have issues with some of the memories that we have with some of our loved ones that we have lost. And what I started writing was how different the Thanksgiving and the dinner table is now without my mom and my dad, my mom, my wife's mom, and her uncle, who all passed away within about a year of each other. My mom and dad passed away 3 months apart. So that was very difficult. So I told Pam I had to stop because it was just getting a little bit difficult for me. So I decided to focus on the kids instead because they have certainly brought sort of a new angle to the discussions at the dinner table. So I have to put on my glasses for this. So what I wrote was Thanksgiving at my house feels much like Nochebuena, and it did before and it still does. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. So we celebrate with friends and family and enjoy traditional turkey, but with a Cuban flair. And while we enjoy mashed potatoes, green beans, stuffing, and yams, well seasoned pork with lots of garlic, onions, and sour oranges is also a staple. And I know some of you have had the turkey that I bring in for every Thanksgiving celebration. It tastes kind of like pork because it's made with all of those ingredients that we're so familiar with. And of course, we enjoy rice and black beans, yuca, and so many other traditional dishes. But Thanksgiving, like everything else, changes over time. We no longer have the more senior members of our family to share the blended family history that we have heard so many times before. Because every year, it's the same story, and they think they're telling it for the first time. But it was always about um, conversations now tend to focus on more contemporary topics important to our millennials, not on the good old days in Cuba, the fertile farmland they left behind, the longing for sorely missed family and friends, the memories of the unmatched beauty of the mountains, the streams, and the beaches. And they always said that those were the most beautiful in the world, although that was their only point of reference, right? Because they hadn't seen anything else. But according to anyone you speak to who used to live in Cuba, they have, the best beaches and everything there. But and also, the recounting of the tragedy of the revolution, because that was a big thing, obviously during the time, and people still felt that you know just how tough it was for everyone, all the Cuban people. So although Thanksgiving has changed over the years, we have encouraged the younger generation, our millennials, to keep traditions and memories alive, but with a new twist. New stories have emerged about whatever is trending on Twitter to ensure there's never a dull moment as we celebrate with family and friends. We remain grateful for our many, many blessings in our millennials. So that is what I wrote. Let me just say one other thing about millennials. I think they have it right. I mean, you spoke about how you learn to prioritize, and I've tried to sort of take some of those lessons too. Millennials have figured it all out. It's about me. They're about I'm gonna need to go to the gym, and let me tell you, I need to go to the gym in the morning, and I need to take care of me, and then when I finish with me, then maybe there's time for like work and everything else. So I'm not sure that that's a bad thing. They seem to be better adjusted than some of us who, you know, it's, most of the time it's all about work and not enough time set aside for family and everything. So, I think as we get older, we do learn how to prioritize a little bit better, a little bit more. So, anyways, thank you.
All right, Nichelle Calhoun, followed by Carla.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm always worried about that. So I was having a last minute decision. Should I read my story or should I share another story? I guess I'll decide now. I'll share a story I was thinking of. So I was in college in 2001, and my focus was international relations with a focus on the African diaspora, but really Africa is what I was thinking. I was studying French, but I was sucked. I was horrible. And so I wanted to study abroad, but France was not going to be an option if I had to speak French. So I got a study abroad book, and I opened it up, and the first thing that opened was Panama. I didn't know anything about Panama, but it said I only need to speak English, so that worked. So I went to Panama. I didn't have any concept of Panama. I'm from a county outside of Washington, D.C., that's 80% black. Most of my childhood was growing up in a predominantly African-American community. And so when I got to Panama, it was a new experience for me to experience discrimination. I had never experienced that. I was one of the few black girls in the university. My college roommates in Panama were not black, and they'd get invited to parties, and I'd be like, hey, and they'd be like, oh, not you. And that was just a very new experience for me. I was there for 5 months. I learned like 5 words of Spanish. Like by the 5th month, I knew like cerveza. Exactly, that's what they told me. But I saw something new. I learned about living in another country. I learned about this racial experience that I had been so insulated from. And when I came back to the US, my whole focus changed. I was like, you know, Africa's great, but I think there's work to be done here. So I started working in Central America, and I applied to the Peace Corps. And I asked the US government for any country but El Salvador. Why? I was very interested in working with blacks in Central America, and El Salvador had a very small population of blacks, almost non-existent. I got El Salvador. I took it, and I felt really out of place. I felt like I wasn't there for my purpose. I really struggled with that there, but I was learning a lot of things. I was living in a small village. No one looked like me. I had my natural hair, and the little kids would come and touch me and touch my hair. Every time I was on the bus, I'd have like little hands on me and in my hair. But it was a beautiful curiosity. And they started calling me La Chocolate. And I'm not going to cry. Every day I would come home from Peace Corps, doing my trainings, and these little kids would be waiting for me. And because I taught them how to play cards, I'm good at playing cards, and I could shuffle very well, they used to say, La Chocolate puede, La Chocolate puede. So every day I'd have these kids that they thought I could play basketball. I don't know, you know, I cannot play basketball, but they thought I could do anything. When I came back to the US, I took that idea back with me, and I became very committed to the African diaspora. And I became very committed to this idea of working with blacks in Central America. And I've been doing it ever since. When I'm not here, when I am here in the community, that is my gaze. I always remember those kids saying, La Chocolate puede. And that's my trans-American experience. And that's what brings me to the American table. Thank you.
So we have Carla, followed by Annabelle.
Since I like to talk too much, I'm just going to stick to my story. It was the night before Thanksgiving when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The pots were hung by the kitchen with care, in hopes that St. Nick soon will be there. Not quite. It was actually Thanksgiving, but it felt like a feast preparation for Christmas, like Evelio said. While I was in bed the night before Thanksgiving, I was thinking how in the world I was going to surmount such a task. Years of tradition were about to change. This was my first year married to the Adrian family. See, my feast was not only to impress my new husband, as he had tried some of my goodies already, but indeed, the feast was much greater. I had a whole family to impress. I was about to embark on a ride that were to last for years to come. I was about to overthrow the mother of all mothers, the Adrian's mother, the Thanksgiving mother herself, mother to 7 children and countless grandchildren, with a spotless track record in the kitchen. I was about to take the world by storm with nothing but the best lechón, arroz blanco, y frijoles negros that has ever been cooked in that side of town. Little did I know that my lack of imagination and cooking what was safe and familiar to me, and being that the turkey was the matriarch's business, I had a choice between pork and ham, and since I love food, and it was over 30 of us, I settled for both. This began a tradition that has lasted until this day. Thanksgiving is celebrated at my house, and I am no longer in charge of the pork, but instead, I have been proclaimed queen of the castle, better known as the kitchen. And I now cook everything Hispanic and everything American. The feast goes from pork, ham, turkey, and all the fixings: white rice, black beans, yuca, sweet potatoes, corn casserole, made from scratch mashed potatoes, collard greens, 7 cheese mac and cheese, Caesar salad, and cornbread. With time, we had evolved to make room for the newer generation that are now in charge of dessert. At first, when the girls were little Adrians, we had their pudding cups with gummy worms, but has now evolved to even a pineapple turnover, or even mommy's famous rum cake recipe baked by one or few of the still young but more mature Adrian girls. The beauty of our family is just as delicate, exotic, and intricate as our menu. We have created a perfect fusion between cultures. My mother and father-in-law, which we all just simply call mommy and daddy, now not only out of respect but out of love. They were born in very different places. Mommy was born in Portugal, and daddy was born in the island of Dominica. Most of their children, including my husband, were born in Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean. And the last 3 of the 7 were born here in the United States. I myself was born in Honduras to a Russian father and a Honduran mother. No, I don't speak Russian, in case you're wondering. I came to this country when I was 12 years old, and out of our 4 children were all born here in the United States. What can I say about our family? It is beautiful, insightful, loving, but more than anything, it is the perfect picture of a world united. It is indeed a perfect fusion, and it is my fusion, and I will not change it for the world. Almost 24 years later, the tradition continues. I am not sure if by overthrowing mommy, I won or I lost. Only after a hard day in the kitchen, and while enjoying leftovers the next day, I finally realized that mommy was not overthrown. She willingly stepped down. After many years of wisdom, I realized that I have yet to learn much from them and the way they have embraced who I am to the very core. God forbid we do not have pork, rice, and beans for Thanksgiving, although they don't even speak Spanish. It will be unheard of. With time, we have evolved from cooking 1 meal to cooking 2. The homeless have gotten used to my now famous turkey with special recipe is just to simmer to perfection the whole bird in half a gallon of mojito criollo and 4 full bars of unsalted butter injected slowly in the bird's chest. As life will have it, the homeless get to taste my food before my family does. And why not? For a change, they are first and not last. Giving thanks at the table has taken a different meaning for us. As we each go around the table, the young and the old get to give thanks individually for what they are thankful for. Leading the way for Daddy, the eldest in the family, to give the final blessing and carve the first piece of that turkey. I cannot imagine a better place to be or a better family to be a part of. Thanksgiving has become a time to celebrate our differences and embrace one another. It is a time to share your abundant blessings with the less fortunate. But above all, it is a time to lead the newer generations by actions and not by words. It is a time to be not only with family, but to be family.
Okay, go ahead, applaud. Bring to the mic Annabelle, and Annabelle is going to be followed by Tony Chidez.
Can we bring this down? No? Okay, so my heart's racing right now. This is a really personal story. So I'm going to try my best not to cry through it, okay? All right. I took the literal meaning of this experience that Nichelle did, so I'm sharing how I remember arriving at America's table. So as a kid, you have just like snapshots of memories, right? You don't have like the whole beginning to end. And then that's usually pieced together by photographs or other people's accounts of the event, usually older people. So when I started thinking about how I came to America's table and what made me American, I started to get snapshots. The first snapshot I got was of my father. My father is the epitome of a machista. They're very masculine, kind of misogynist. I really don't know how to describe it in English, but that's what he was. And my first memory, he's crying. He's crying for days. It's my first memory of seeing my dad cry. Probably the only times in my life that I've seen him cry. And the reason he was crying was because his younger brother had just been killed. His younger brother was still in Colombia, in Dos Quebradas, where his family was. His brother was 13 years old when this happened. And the reason he was so upset, aside from losing his younger brother, was because he couldn't travel to lay his brother to rest. He couldn't be there because you can't travel as an undocumented immigrant without risking being deported or separated from your family. So he didn't travel, and we just watched him kind of mourn through that for days. I realized after the fact that my mom was also kind of affected by their legal status. She also was undocumented, and so as when I was little, we didn't drive anywhere. My father worked, she stayed home with us. She didn't drive because she was afraid of getting pulled over and deported. So we walked everywhere. We walked to the grocery store, we walked to Zayre's. It's not there anymore, but it used to be on Northwest 7th in front of the Flagler racetrack. We walked everywhere, and when we had enough money, we would take taxis. And so I didn't think it made me any different. I grew up in Miami, and I thought that was everyone's story, right? And then one fateful day, another snapshot memory I have, we're inside an immigration office. And after talking to my mom about it, it turns out that during President Ronald Reagan's presidency, he offered amnesty to immigrants who had been living and working in the US. I'm sure there was lots of rules attached to it. But as a result, there was going to be an influx of immigrants that were going to be applying for this amnesty. And there were several offices that were opened across the city. And so one of my snapshots, I'm standing behind both my parents, and my younger sister is as well, and we're all dressed up. My parents dressed up whenever things were special. So we're all dressed up, and if you're familiar with the Colombian culture and Colombian men, dressing up means like wearing cowboy boots and a Texas-style belt with a big buckle. It's very bizarre, but that's how he dressed up for years. My mom was dressed up too. And I remember asking them, why are we here? Why are we here? I was 6 going on 7, and they just kept saying, la residencia, we're here, la residencia. And I'm like, la residencia, okay. That means their residency. They were there to submit their paperwork. So after they submitted their paperwork, we went out to dinner. We didn't do that often either, so it's like a special memory. Then the card arrives in the mail, and I remember examining it, really, really, really confused, and looking at it and saying, resident alien? But you guys aren't aliens. And they didn't understand me, or at least I think they didn't. And I kept saying, you guys are humans. This says you're an alien. In Spanish, my attempts to translate the word alien from English to Spanish, I was convinced they just didn't get it. Like, you guys are aliens. And so I asked them where my card was and where my younger sister's card was, and they said we didn't need one because we were born in the US. I have to go back to my story now. So the card was really confusing to me. It always was, but it was really momentous for them because they started to plan our travel back to Colombia. Well, their travel back, my first time to Colombia. So at 7, I met my grandmother for the first time, and my grandfather, and aunts and uncles and cousins. And it was really special for my parents, I'm sure, because they hadn't been back since the late 70s when they had immigrated to the US. And then as I got older, I heard similar stories from friends, from peers around school. Like this was something that was pretty normal. Not everyone lives in the same house with their grandmother. Our grandmothers are sometimes in our native countries. And then I thought to myself that because this story was so similar, that in and of itself, it constituted an invitation to America's table. Because after all, we're a melting pot of diverse cultures and religions and ethnicities. It's what you're taught in school. And didn't the founding fathers arrive here without documentation and call themselves Americans, right? So I also wrote this story the day after the election. So in my most challenging days, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question, right? The hateful rhetoric around immigration reform also introduced me to a new word that I didn't learn until I was in my late 20s. Apparently, there are people who believe that the US-born children of undocumented immigrants are anchor babies instead of seeds of hope. They also believe they can make a judgment about the They also think they can make a judgment about the way a people flee despair, poverty, or violence in search of dreams and sacrifice. As if it's not worthy enough if you don't have the right permission or the right passport when you arrive to dry land. So I refuse to believe that my parents' sacrifices were in vain or that they were less than. And I refuse to distance myself from the families who fear separation today, right? Because I don't feel that I'm much different from them. The struggle that raised me decades ago parallels their current struggle. And although 27 years ago, the stroke of a pen gave my parents the right to live and work in this country without fear, I still remain the child of immigrants. And I'm a product of their sacrifices. And on my most empowered days, I believe that this grants us full access to America's table, even if we're not that good at cooking turkey.
All right. Zoila, Tony, we're gonna go to Zoila because Zoila has another appointment. Zoila?
Remember to bring a box of Kleenex next time because, her speech, I'm so relatable to that. Okay. So, for those of you that don't know, I write poetry. I have a few poems that have been published before. I love to rhyme. Like, to me, a poem that rhymes, it makes you dance, emotionally. While I was writing this note, I was trying to say, hey, I wanted to rhyme. I just want my poem to rhyme. But, our stories are so relatable, and we have families like I'm Nicaraguan. My my daughter's father is Colombian. My aunt, she's married to a Cuban. He came, un balsero. He came through, through a boat, through a raft. Um, my cousin, I don't have any sisters or brothers, but my cousin that we were raised together, she got married to an Argentinian, guy. So, we're so different, but I enjoy this culture potluck. This whole, our stories are so connected. So, I'm still, I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about it, but it's kind of fun. What I wrote, it says, on Thanksgiving Day, United Nations come to meet. My Cuban tío brings congrí. My Nicaraguan tía el nacatamal. My Argentinian cuñado some empanadas de pollo. We do not follow protocol when it comes to food, but we definitely enjoy every last piece. On Thanksgiving Day, we share culture, we share laughter, we share historias of when we barely had anything to eat. Our children enjoy vibrant and fresh colors while expanding their paladar. On Thanksgiving Day, it doesn't feel like Thanksgiving Day, but we enjoy our time together. We build memories for our children with our children. Thank you.
All right. That is tough to follow. I'll be very quick, I promise. Corey, you got to stay with me. So, being born and raised in Chicago, coming on over here, I want to share with you my first Thanksgiving here in Florida. But to do that, I have to share with you my Thanksgiving from Chicago when I was a kid. So, much like Yamilet's Thanksgivings, I come from a Puerto Rican family, half Puerto Rican, half Mexican. But you could hear, as you would be coming around the block to my grandmother's house, because it was always at Abuela's house, always, 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 you could hear instruments for some reason, right? So I know that typically in Puerto Rico for Christmas, everybody, goes with their instruments. My family takes any opportunity to grab a guiro, tambores, different kinds of instruments, pots and pans, and they just have a spectacular time, and you can hear it. So gathered at my grandmother's house as I grew up, there'd be at least 40 of us, uncles, aunts, nephews, cousins, my immediate family, and it was a blast, right? I would phrase it as alive. Thanksgiving was alive. You'd go and it wasn't quiet, and you would hear in the corner somebody yelling "Kapiku" because they're playing dominoes and they're slamming them on the table. You'd see people dancing, and in my younger years, I was shy, believe it or not, very, very shy, and I would see my cousins, like I said, they would tear up the dance floor with this music, and I was shy. I'm like, I want to do that, but I don't think that I can. And it's great, fast forwarding to the future now, because whenever we'd celebrate Thanksgiving, they'd sit down and they'd watch me with my skills now on the dance floor. But you'd have all the great food and the different meals. But the one thing that really stuck with me that I remember is it was cold in Chicago, right? So when you go in and you have little abuela, and she's like this tall, and she would be so full of love and energy, and I still don't know how old she is, but she is still kicking with all that energy and excitement, and she would hug everyone, and you'd feel that love, right? And love is sometimes something that's hard to explain in words, but you can feel it in actions. And in Thanksgiving, that woman could spread love through that whole household, and there's 40 people there, and you would see abuela everywhere, and she's singing and dancing, and it was so much, it's just something that you feel. So when I moved to Florida with my family, and I'm married, I have 4 daughters, and we moved to Florida the first year, Thanksgiving was coming up, and I knew that homesickness was starting to kick in, and I'm like, my abuela, my cousins, my everybody, I don't know anybody in Florida, who's going to be there? It was fresh, and I'm like, who's going to hit the pots and pans? And who's going to do this, and who's going to do I was sad, right? And as it was approaching, I remember working the day before Thanksgiving and getting home, and I'm like, I'm going to put a smile on my face when I get home because I know that my wife's going to cook this great meal for my family and I, and I'm going to make sure that she doesn't think that I'm missing anything. And when I got out of the car at my house, I see her standing outside with my suitcase and there's a taxi there, and she's got a ticket for me to fly back to Chicago to spend Thanksgiving with my family. So that selfless act and her being able to give me my Thanksgiving from my youth, it was a great time for me. At the same time, sad because I know that my wife and my daughters would not be spending that holiday with me. But I flew back over there, and like a little baby, I was crying on the airplane. I was crying when I got to my grandmother's house, and I'm knocking on the door. They didn't know that I was coming, and they opened the door, and I'm like, "It's me!" And they're like, "What are you doing here? Oh my God!" And it was just a really, really great time. And now, when we fast forward, having about 5 years of Miami, South Florida experience, we're making our own Thanksgiving traditions now, right? So though I don't have any blood family here in South Florida, I've made new family through church, through work, through neighbors, and we invite people to our house. We have those same traditions. We're not as loud yet. We're working on it, on getting as loud. But honestly, what I would say for the American table moving forward, for us, I want to be able to be, and this is going to sound weird, I want to be able to be my grandmother. I mean, not be her, but be like my grandmother and be that love-emitting person where you walk into that house and it's like, man, do you feel it? I feel it. And I want that going forward for me and my family. I think all households should do that because we have so much to be thankful for. So thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. He's got a voice for radio. Love that. All right, guys, you ready for the ride? I bring to the mic Fred Hicks.
I don't know. I was listening to everybody's story, and it was just, I don't know, Thanksgiving for us was either a cooking competition or somebody wanted a dance competition. So I don't know where to even start. I mean, let me start with Rose. I'll talk about my mom, and I call her Rose now, not out of disrespect, but out of the mere understanding of now I get it. Because my mom was like our traditional African-American mom who says to you, I'll make a potato salad. Don't show up in the kitchen until it's ready. Then she'll walk away. And of course, there were 5 of us. My brother Manny, he was hard-headed. My sister Wendy, she's quite funny. I'm in the middle, so I was like the peacekeeper. Always getting in trouble, but never guilty. My brother Theo and my younger brother Ben. So one of us would wander into the kitchen, and my mom would say, didn't I tell you not to come in this kitchen because the potato salad's not ready? Okay, that was your warning. The next time you're going to wear a plate upside your head because mama did not play. She would let you have it in a heartbeat. My grandmother was the best chef in the country. My grandmother made a sweet potato pie that people would come from down all the way south to north to get a slice of. Because when grandma made the pie, she didn't measure it. It was whatever she felt like that morning. So she put that sweet potato pie together. She would stir up those sweet potatoes by hand. She would mash out all those little strings by hand. And she would pour that sugar with her back turned. She'd add that lard and that butter to that pan and never look at it. And she'd talk and hum the whole time. She would just sit and say, we're going to have some sweet potato pie today. Frederick, you want some sweet potato pie, baby? Hold on now, it's coming. That's the sugar. It's going to be good, ain't it, Frederick? And in the oven it went. 45 minutes later, if you had bad grades, if you didn't do your chores, you did not taste that pie. And grandma would tell you, come line up if you know your grades are good. I come running. Wait a minute. Now, Manny, you know you can't have no pie. You had that D in English, and if you can't speak it, you can't enjoy it. Theo would show up, he would get a thin piece because she would measure your grades. Well, you had a lot of B's, baby, so that ain't quite A cake and A pie level. Your brother Frederick had A's. Frederick, how much pie you want? Grandma measured everything. My mom, her direct daughter, learned how to cook just like Grandma. When my grandmother passed away, she said to us, now who wants some of Grandma's pie? We were like, oh, you gonna make Grandma pie? She said, yeah, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it the same way. Double the sugar, double the butter, double the real lard. But Mama was stricter than Grandma. You had to have good grades, never say a bad word in the house, keep your room spotless, and show respect in church before you get a slice of pie. Rose was dead serious. So, of course, one year, I hadn't done so well in the church department because I like to make jokes in church. When the pastor's preaching, I used to point people out. Because, you know, at an African-American church, they talk about your sins. So if you're an adulterer and we saw you at the neighbor's house and they mentioned somebody committing adultery, I'd point. It always caused problems. Nevertheless, I was never guilty. Mama made that sweet potato pie, and it was time for Judgment Day. Well, Frederick, you got good grades, so your pie started out this big. You did real good on your room being clean. But you were bad in front of the Lord. I was like, Mama, please. She said, no. You can't mess up in front of God and act good for me. That don't work for me because God is higher than I am. I'm like, yes, ma'am. Then my brother would come up, namely Manny, and he would look and say, I was good in church. And my mom would say, baby, you still got a D in English. And if you can't see it, you can't eat it. Get to the back of the line. My sister loved us because whatever we didn't eat, we shared with our sister. Because my sister played the guilt trip. There was 4 boys and 1 girl. She would always walk in the room and say, Frederick, Mama didn't give me that much. Can I have a piece of yours? I was like, yes, Wendy. She was so cute. You couldn't resist. Then I figured her out when I turned about 13. I said, ooh, you've been getting me for years, Wendy. I hope you starve. At the end of Thanksgiving, after you had the pie, you had to dance it off. How many people remember Soul Train? Raise your hand if you remember Soul Train, because if you danced at Thanksgiving, you had to show off some skills. Come on up. Come on up. You know I was going to get him. He talked about dancing. Let's go. Who's going to give us the music? Somebody. Somebody give us a beat. Come on. Victor? Who else? Wait.
Kimbara, kimbara, kira, kimbamba, kimbara, kimbara, kira, kimbamba. And then you can do some, what do you want to do? Merengues?
Merengue.
You can do some banda. We didn't do banda.
So you understand what we had to do. Whatever people did on the floor, you had to match it or outdo it. So one year, of course, y'all remember break dancing. I'm not going to break dance. Don't act up. Those days are over. You remember break dancing, right? You remember that little flip people did and they spin on their head and all that? So there I am, spinning on my head, just having a blast. Those are my much thinner days. And this is why she has a second bandage. She said it, not me. Spinning on my head in the middle of the floor. My grandmother comes over there and she says, baby, what you doing? I'm spinning on the floor to the music and I paused because I had skills. I said, Grandma, I'm breakdancing. She said, you're going to break everything. Get up off the floor, baby. Let me show you how to dance. I was like, what? Uh-oh. And she told my brother to put on a record. And I'm sitting there waiting in anticipation. And I'm thinking to myself, what is Grandma going to do? Grandma had a record from way back in the day. Way back in the day. Name the oldest song you know. Go ahead. Anybody. You got to know the beat to it. The oldest. He's close, actually. What's the Temptations' best song? Come on, Pam. My Girl. There was one more. Can't get next to you, babe. My grandmother juked, and she called it juking. Yes. She said it. I'm never guilty. Remember that. I'm never guilty. My grandmother juked back in the day harder than any of us will ever juke in life. And she was short like your abuelita. And she juked. And it was just rhythmic. And everybody who walked after her, she kept saying it. Can't get next to you, babe. And she would just let you know, no, you can't get next to me with that because you can't dance. Oh, no, you can't dance either, Frederick. And she stepped into our lives every Thanksgiving with the same song, year after year. We had parties at Thanksgiving. We jammed like there was no tomorrow because we were thankful that somebody could afford a turkey that year. That somebody could afford all the ingredients for the sweet potato pie. And that somebody's food stamps were good enough to make sure we had all the trimmings to come along with it. But Thanksgiving is that one meal you save. You save every penny you have because that was one of the biggest parties ever. I don't know what brought you to the table today. We're at Boston Market. I ain't see no sweet potato pie over there, Vilio. Something wrong, Boston Market. I don't like pumpkin pie. Apple pie too American. I want me a piece of sweet potato pie. So y'all heard her say she's going to bring me a piece of sweet potato pie, right? Never guilty. I love it. Don't you guys love that moment when you realize that you can be like your abuelita, that you can stay in this country and be happy, that you can ensure that everyone learns a lesson every year that makes us smarter, better, stronger, and faster, and able to be there for our children. I have a son, and his name is Justin. He's autistic. And Justin, oh, I got the timer. I asked him 2 years ago, Justin, what are you thankful for? Because his diet is very limited. And he said, bacon. And I said, no, Justin, aren't you thankful for family, friends, and schooling? No, Daddy, bacon. Whatever it is you're thankful for, please remember this time of year is special for everybody. Thank you.
All right. So I don't know that we can really top that. I hope that you guys enjoyed this opportunity. I think this might be one of my favorite ELC cafes because it really was more than lunch. It's your voices, it's your perspectives, it's your experiences that bring us all to America's table. It's with great honor that I wish all of you a happy and joyous Thanksgiving. But remember, more than anything else, Thanksgiving really is about family. It's really about friends. It's really about the journey. So, in honor of all of you, millennials to our not so millennials, from our immigrant families to our native born, to the young, to the old, to the wise, to those who we stand behind and those who lifted us up on their shoulders. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.